All right, DJ, PK, it's 97.5 The Zone, and we are joined by Tim LaComb. You hear him on Jazz pre-half and post-game shows. Tim, good morning.
We need the welcome back Cotter music right there.
Yeah, we tease him a lot because we got him on the spot. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back.
Horseshack, your guy?
You're getting pretty deep into this show. This is an old show, dude.
Sorry. Okay.
Oh.
That was a group, though, a legitimate group who did that song, right?
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I think it was.
I just dug it when I was a kid.
Right, but I think they were a prominent group.
Well, let's do a little research.
Yeah.
I'll get on that right now.
Like, nobody knows who sang Moving On Up for the Jeffersons, right?
But we should. It was brilliant.
Right, but that Cotter tune, I think it was a legitimate 67. Yeah, is what I'm getting at, yeah. I have to double-check that, but I think so.
How are my guys doing?
We are debating the exact point that you and I were talking about during the last game when I was camping out and invading your space. And
Love
that
it.
is these wins, the improvement of multiple young players is good. Led, obviously, Keyonte George to be the headliner in that group. But there are other guys who are improving. The wins are great, but are they fool's gold because the bottom third of the league is so bad, either so bad because they can't help themselves or so bad because they like the top of the draft. So are these wins fool's gold, and do you really want them, or would you prefer to keep the draft pick even though maybe you end up drafting, sixth and you're not getting any of the three big names at the top of the draft? Where do you personally fall on this? Where do you think the organization falls on this?
I think, it doesn't have to be either or. I think there's a blend of I think some of that happening. And I'm ecstatic about having watched this from, the beginning of the rebuild, kind of the decision made to go down this road. I'm ecstatic with year by year, just the development of guys. I think the big move early was Lowry coming over and discovering what kind of player he is. I think he was kind of lost in the shuffle of NBA transactions. And, the first step was understanding you got a bona fide guy that can do what he's doing on a nightly basis. And then obviously you open yourself up to the draft. And the one thing I've tried to preach for all my time on the radio is there is no, this is not like just ascending a board. Every guy's got different challenges. And, Keyonte George this year is just having an absolutely meteoric rise. And we talked about it on pregame a couple of times, but I said to Jake, he's playing different this year early on, but he still wasn't shooting the ball great. Shot percentages were not great. And we said it a few times when these shots start to fall for him, when he starts actually making shots, because taking better shots this year and he's more intentional on what he's getting. But when those shots start falling, you're going to put up some crazy numbers, and lo and behold, we're to that chapter now. But, there are all sorts of different side stories, but I think the key is that the young guys, as hoped, are getting older, they're getting more wise, and they're getting better. And we're seeing that, on a nightly basis, whether you camp out in the studio or not.
Yeah, I was talking to Locke about this. The thing that I like about George, the point totals are nice, but I'm a huge guy in looking into guys' souls, which are translated a lot into body language. And his body language is remarkably different than what it's been. It's like, I belong here. It must have been like when he was 12, 13, 14, those types. And when he was dominating that level of competition, I assume he was dominating that level of competition. I did not see him play at that point. But it looks like he believes, I'm a man in this league and I'm here to stay, boys. Whether the shot goes in or not on a given night, I don't really care. It's that the next time he has the ball, it's the same type of mindset. His mindset that is manifest through his body language is something that's gotten me fired up.
Very astute. I think David and I did a podcast. I joined his illustrious Locked On podcast prior to the season. And one of the things we talked about as we went through each guy, it was time for Keyonte. The time was running out. And I think so much of it was because he, first couple of years, he was trying to get acclimated in all sorts of ways. And the body language thing you mentioned is a major thing that has shifted. But I would dare say that most of what Keyonte, where he is right now, most of it is because of the mental work and the shift in attitude, and
which he's talked about.
Making this more of a team game as opposed to a me game. And you had mentioned it from the time this dude was 13 years old, people knew he was going to play in the NBA and treated him as such. And, when you go for a myriad of years, in your formative years, where all people do, regardless of what you do, is give you stuff and tell you how great you are, it's hard to overcome that. And so I think there was some soul searching. I think there was some, obviously a ton of work on skill and strength, but I still believe that the yeoman's work that's gotten Keyonte where he is right here is simply a shift in mindset.
So are you worried about losing the draft pick? And do you think
because
the Jazz are?
There's really smart people doing this,
yeah. And
I do get a kick out of everybody joysticking it at home on the couch with their Twitter handy, saying the front office is so these are very smart guys with the understanding of the magnitude of decisions, and I just don't sense that. Again, I think you can do both. I think you can win enough games and you can bring guys along naturally, but I also think they're always aware of the score, and they're always aware of all the details around the score. So I would tell everybody that's really pent up about that to find something else to worry about, because I don't think this will be a worry when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'm worried about it, though, because I'm not worried about it, but I think there's a good chance that they can lose the pick. And it really has nothing to do with them. There are so many crappy teams in this league this year that you could be crappy, but there could be 8, 9 teams, 10 teams that are just crappier.
And I think that the level of bad, a truly awful,
right.
Just how are the Pelicans 5-22?
They suck.
Just awful.
Yeah. There's no way they're going to win 20 games.
I'm with you. I don't see how they do it either.
Right. I suppose you can say, well, okay, we had Phoenix down there, and Phoenix has just replaced New Orleans, so it's a wash. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's really early yet. I agree with you. The bottom of the league is growing.
Yeah, right.
It seems to grow every year that I do this. Until there's some actual systemic changes, which may never happen, this is probably something you fight. But again, the pick's really important. Losing the pick would be pretty tough. And so I just, like I've been saying over the course of the rebuild, guys are going to flower, and forget that pick. Look at where, you've got a number one guy in Lowry who can also, beauty of Lowry, he can be a 2 or a 3. He don't care, right? He's just going to go play. You've got a guy who's ascended now to the type of numbers Keyonte's putting up nightly. And Coach Hardy made the point, we're still early in the season, so this has got to continue. This is an every night league, and you need to continue to see it. But my goodness, I think his aggression level, his ability to score, his decision making, all those things have jumped. You've got a guy in Walker Kessler who's not playing this year, but he's an elite rim protector, shot blocker, rebounder. Ace Bailey's still, in his beginning. He's just trying to take root. But you see nightly some of the crazy things he can do. Look back a couple of years to, Trent Forrest coming off the bench as a real guy and, not having any kind of five outside of Rudy Gobert. And it's just crazy to me how, this has not been a short period of time, but this rebuild has been exactly what everybody hopes it to be. You're adding great talent. You're developing the veterans. And when you start to step back and look at that lineup, Keyonte, Lowry, Walker, I think a guy who's definitely outpunched his trade value is Filipowski. I would call him a hit at this point. I mean, he had 25 and 9 the other night. And he continues to impress and inspire. I'm still heavily on the Taylor Hendricks bandwagon. He's still fighting some injury gravity, but he had a really nice stint the other night, and I think he's a viable guy. So again, you look at what you're accumulating, you look at the picks that still exist and the cap space. We're right on the verge of things getting pretty exciting here, guys, I think.
How about Will Hardy having to scream to play hard, though? That was a red flag.
Oh, man, I think you could probably snip NBA coaches from time to time and get that from just about everybody. Human nature is we're all built to try to find the easiest route. And NBA players are no different on a nightly basis. Sometimes you got to have your head put back on. So I know that got viral and everybody went crazy about it. But what I love about that is it doesn't show Will sitting on the bench prior to a game with his arm around a guy, chatting him up for 20 minutes, And so I think that's the beauty of this is I think Will is a guy who has got respect in that locker room. He can do stuff like that because he puts in the time.
We just were talking about the NBA Cup, San Antonio in New York. Does that announce to you, it doesn't have much value by itself, it's only its third year, but does that announce to you that either one of those teams is ready for deep playoff runs the way the Thunder, before they won the title a year ago, they were in the NBA Cup final, announcing themselves like, we're here, we're no longer the young team on the rise, look at us?
Partly, but I think that's what the NBA Cup brings, which I really like, is it ramps up competition early in the season, which you don't get to see. But you watched that game last night, last few minutes, particularly when everything was on the line. I mean, those teams were really going after each other. And so I like it from that standpoint. I think it does give teams that are on the rise, a little feel of just a teeny feel of what the playoffs are going to feel like. But definitely guys raise their level. And I think if we could get rid of the floors going forward, that would be a big step. I don't know that they're all that necessary. But I like the idea, and I think it's been successful. Last night's game was great, and I think those are two teams that in the Knicks, that's a veteran-laden group with big-time star power at the top, and, they've juggled a little bit with coaches and bench and all that, but those guys look like they're having a lot more fun playing for Brown than Tibbs. It reminds me a little bit of when Majerus left and Giacoletti came in. Really well-schooled veteran dudes in New York, just like, the Utes. But then when somebody comes in and can make it fun, a little more fun, less arduous, I think that's when that team, like the Knicks, look like they're playing with new life, and definitely a little more rubber on their shoes. They're not not having to play as many minutes each guy with Tibbs gone. So, yes, long story, long answer, but I'm a huge fan of the Cup. I think the Spurs are, when you look at the Spurs and OKC and the future of those two organizations, that's scary as hell, for the West, because those two teams they're really good right now, but they have all that ability to get better. So it's an uphill slog for sure if you're in the West, but hasn't it always been? Seems like it's always been.
BYU has Final Four aspirations, right? A.J. DeMont's obviously is talking about winning it all. As I've watched them play, I've been to 3 games, and I've watched start to finish another 5 games, including against Pacific. So that's 8 games total, and certainly as the time goes on, I'll get down to the Amerit Center even more, and we'll have more evaluations once we start league play, which is just right around the corner, obviously. With that in mind, the thing that I think or 2 things I think that could stand in their way are lack of big men underneath, and I was texting you about that the other day, and I'm a little leery of the bench. I think that KY can develop the bench a little bit more because he has to, so I think understanding of something that he has to do, he will do, but the bench and maybe teams coming up with offensive rebounds are the 2 things that's got me the most concerned.
I think that those 2 probably are if you look at this team, first and foremost, I think they've been awesome with 1 loss, in a frantic comeback to UConn, who's showed that they're very, very good again. No surprise. But I think I'm most impressed with this group's collective intent to win. And sometimes, particularly when you get a really high-level guy or 2, winning is always important, but sometimes it becomes secondary to getting yours. And, with the way that this group was kind of put together, and particularly early in the season, Rob Wright, to me, early in the season, maybe did a little too much dribbling, and I had to kind of warm up to that dude, but obviously he's nails. The big shot in Madison Square Garden shows you kind of what his capabilities are. But I think their ability as a group to make winning the most important thing through all this would be what I'm most impressed with. I think star players can kind of take a team in different directions, and I've really been impressed with all of the hype that AJ, got. But what he does, in that way, the gravity that he pulls the team in to win, and not necessarily for him to look good. And then I think their coaching has been out of this world. Coach Rose was at the game, Madison Square Garden, and sitting kind of close to the bench.
Oh, yeah. I texted him. I said, my gosh, I thought you were one of the 20 coaches that they've added to the staff.
Yeah, exactly. If he was wearing that polo or whatever they were wearing, he could probably got paid for the day, or at least get per diem. But he's sitting there, and he texted me, and he said, "Our guy can really coach." He's like out of timeouts. You see what he's trying to do, the plays, sets, and the way that he highlights guys. Like, this dude is really, really good. And so they've got that little component. And yeah, the weakness probably is a combination of extra size and depth. But I think that was maybe a little bit of the issue early last year, at least the depth piece. And KY, kind of like an NBA guy, he uses opportunities to get guys better, uses opportunities to get guys a little feel. But all those things are for what you said, to develop the bench. And so I think the Final Four is definitely in the cards. It's always a seeding thing and a matchup thing. But if they can continue to take care of business and get a good seed and the matchup's good, for all the reasons I mentioned, I think with the star power and the way they're aligned and the coaching and everything else, as good a chance as ever, right? And I think it's been a really, really good thing, the shift in this program. Historically, BYU struggled to get that high-level star power, and they've got that. And so now it's a matter of trying to get this team as good as possible through the crazy gauntlet as the Big 12 coming up here. But I'm excited for the spring. I'm excited to see what this team can do. And, I was a little bit skeptical coming in with AJ, watching all of his tape and trying to figure out how they're going to deal with all of this. But, man, the kid's been really mature, and they've handled it great. So I'm excited to see where it can go.
I can't believe you used just half the phrase. You just said per diem. I think you meant Pat Riley per diem, the full phrase.
Oh, Pat Riley per diem. I was never privy to. I was always just Tim LaComb per diem, and
yeah. But if Rick Majerus didn't,
season, like when you went to the NCAA tournament back in the day,
mm-hmm.
your per diem jumped from $15 a meal to like $60.
Wow!
And so you were definitely at that point. You were in Fat City.
Rick Majerus,
which was just a little food court down the street. Rick
Majerus used to drop Pat Riley per diem all the time. He must have heard some deal that Pat Riley cut because he would never let that go. I thought you must have been inundated with that.
And then this dates us. There's lots of people driving around that probably don't even know who Rick Majerus is. But one of the first times I ever went to lunch dinner with that dude, it was like I was in shock because the waitress came out and there was kind of a table next to us that wasn't being used yet. And Majerus was like, can we use that table? And I was thinking, are we inviting more people? Like, why are we using our table? Then I saw him order. And I realized that extra table was for 4 entrees he just wanted to try. They were just like part and parcel of the meal, but they weren't the main meal. They were in the holding area on another table until he was ready for them. So, man, that was a whole different deal. But sorry, I had to throw that in there. Dude could eat.
All right, we got to run, but as we go, PK was right. John Sebastian from Lovin' Spoonful sang the theme to Welcome Back, Kotter. So there you go.
Welcome
to bring it full circle.
Welcome back. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Tim.
PK, start singing all day to bug him. See you.
Tim LaComb here on Jazz Games, pregame, halftime, and postgame.